Hey everyone, welcome to today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. My name is Nate Carter, and today's devotional is for those of you that are in a season of drought right now, perhaps a spiritual valley, a struggle, and not necessarily a sin struggle where you're in the wrong, but rather just a time of dryness or wandering where you just don't know where God is leading you and when you're going to be out of it. Psalm 44 speaks to us about a situation just like that. And it gives us a few lessons for how we should mentally position ourselves when we're in those times. So let's walk through a few sections together. Verse 1, O God, we have heard it with our own ears. Our ancestors have told us of all you did in their day. In days long ago, you drove out the pagan nations by your power and gave all the land to our ancestors. You crushed their enemies and set our ancestors free. So the descendants of Korah who wrote this psalm are experiencing strife right now, experiencing that drought of some kind, that desert place of some kind. And they remember, the first thing they do is they remember how God has delivered in the past. So when you're in that place of dryness, remember how God has delivered you in the past, but also remember the stories upon stories of how God has delivered his people, both in the Bible and also perhaps others that you know, stories where God has brought people through those times. The first thing we do is we remember. Watch what happens next, verse 3. They did not conquer the land with their swords. It was not their own strong arm that gave them victory. It was your right hand and strong arm, and the blinding light from your face that helped them, for you loved them. See, they're remembering that when God led the people of Israel into the promised land, it wasn't because they were some sort of specially trained army that had all the tools that they needed. No, they had God on their side, and he was fighting for them. He was going before them to lead them into the land. And by extension, verse 5, only by your power can we push back our enemies. Only in your name can we trample our foes. I do not trust in my bow. I do not count on my sword to save me. So based on that acknowledgement that God has delivered his people and he's done the hard work, he's done the heavy lifting in the past. So we project that forward into our own situation to say, you know what? I'm not going to trust in my abilities to work my way through this. I prayed this prayer to God this morning. I said, God, I do not trust in my bow. I don't count on my sword to save me. And maybe you need to pray that as well. And it can be easy for us in our culture today, in our individualistic, you can do it yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps culture, to say that you just need to figure out the right tools to get your way through. Believe in yourself. That's not the Christian way. That's not the way of those that follow Jesus. We believe that God has the power, and it's his power working in and through us that leads us through the desert place and into the next place of deliverance for us. So we don't trust in our own bow or our own sword. We trust in the power of the Lord Most High. Verse 9, we find out that this is not a place where the people have sinned against God, but rather this is a situation where they're finding themselves in a desert place for seemingly no logical reason. But now you have tossed us aside in dishonor. You no longer lead our armies to battle. You make us retreat from our enemies and allow those who hate us to plunder our land. You have butchered us like sheep and scattered us among the nations. Verse 17, all this has happened though we have not forgotten you. We have not violated your covenant. Friends, remember, we live in the in-between time between the resurrection of Jesus and his second coming. And in that time, sin still lives among us. Satan still has some power. Evil happens to us and around us. And so we suffer the consequences of sin still living on earth. And so sometimes wrong happens to us, even though we've done nothing to personally deserve it. And that doesn't mean that God is absent. Doesn't mean that God's promises are no longer going to be fulfilled. They will. But it's just a reminder that we have to persevere. We have to endure until the time when Jesus comes again. Verse 23 tells us what we must do in the meantime. we needn't shy away from calling out to God to rescue us. Verse 23, wake up, O Lord. Why do you sleep? He doesn't sleep, but I love the boldness that they know that those that are in relationship can call out to God. Get up. Do not reject us forever. Why do you look the other way? Why do you ignore our suffering and oppression? We collapse into dust, lying face down in the dirt. Rise up. Help us. Ransom us because of your unfailing love. So they appeal to God because of his nature of being a God of love that loves his children and wants to help them. Rise up, O Lord, and help us in this time of distress. I invite you to use Psalm 44 today as your personal prayer to God to lead you through those desert times, whether it's today that you find them or a day that's in the future. We remember God's deliverance in the past, both to us, to our friends, and to our ancestors. We cry out to God to deliver us in our time of need. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.